Hello, welcome to class. I'm sorry I couldn't make it today. I had some automotive issues, but this should suffice to get us to where we need to be. Okay. The first thing I want to talk about is I want to make an announcement. Okay. Everything basically from week 9, week 10, week 11, week 12, week 13. And this week is week 14, okay, has been extended, okay? In other words, everything is reopened. So please don't wait until Sunday night, on the 5th, which is, which will be coming up here. Today is the, next to the last day of the month, third, don't wait till the 5th is Tuesday, okay? Everything will be due. Notice that everything is due at a minute before midnight on Tuesday, right here. Okay? So this is an opportunity. If you haven't done the work, now's the time to do it. Because when I get ready to grade stuff, and that will be, I'll be grading stuff. We have some other work that will be due on the 9th, right? Okay? If you don't have it, you'll get a 0. Okay? So take your best shot, take your best effort. I'm going to take effort into consideration and finish this work. There's no other way to put it. I can't direct you or explain anything else to you. Don't complicate things. Just go in, please, and do the work. Okay. So, with that said, let's look at this week is social change. Okay. Oh, one more announcement to make. You see week 15 here. Basically week 15, I moved the date also to December the 9th. Now, December the 9th is a week from, that would be a week from, Tuesday. Okay. I think, wait a minute. No, December the 9th would be Saturday. Okay. So Saturday, December the 9th, all this stuff is due. Please don't email me on the 12th and go, hey, can I submit my work? It will be too late. You will have gotten a 0 already. I'm required to turn grades in. I'm contractually obligated to get your grades turned in, right? Okay. So your final project, and please go ahead and read through this. Don't text me on the 8th and ask me, hey, what's going on? What should I do for this paper? No. If you haven't started working on it, work on it now, please. Okay, this is a college class. It's different than what maybe you're used to, the pace of work you used to be doing. And, I can't ride over you and make sure you do the work. You're responsible for checking yourself and making sure you do the work. So for the final paper, you have the introduction and objectives here that will explain everything you need to do, okay? It will also explain, you turn in your final paper and a final project, okay? Now, if I go up here, on to the left, okay, it says final project information. Here it is, okay? All these things here in the left column, don't ask me where they are, please. I'm telling you now, they're here, okay? So go in and look at this material here, and you can, for your infographic, I've expanded what I'm allowing you to do. You can either create a slideshow using PowerPoint or Google Slides, or you can make a video. And there's information here, but now is the time, this is not a homework assignment like you have in your high school classes. Okay? This is something you need to start working on now. Okay? All right. So that's the first thing. The second thing we want to do now is go back and let's look at our last substantial chapter. Okay. This is social movements and social change. So basically, social movements. Okay. What are the theory is, and there's some evidence that any kind of social change is precipitated or accelerated by a concerted social movement. Collective action. And this collective action here, alterative, redemption, reformative, or revolutionary, right? Okay. The first two of these, alterative and redemptive, okay, it comes from a great piece of work that was done by a anthropologist in the mid to late 1960s, but it still works. If you have an alterative kind of social movement, it's something like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, for example, okay, where the drunk, that used to be that the blood alcohol content in states was as high as 1.8. Now, you have to be very intoxicated to have that level of, and you certainly can't drive, okay? So, alterative movements seek to change individual behavior somewhat, okay? And they through social change. And so the Mothers Against Drunk Driving was successful in that they changed the laws in this country. There are some places, they're not quite zero tolerance. Your blood alcohol content can be as low as having one drink and you would be too intoxicated to drive. Okay? It's had a positive consequential effect on accidents and deaths and insurance rates due to drunk driving. Okay. A second one here, redemptive. Okay. It's also an individually kind of oriented social change movement. Okay. A redemptive movement seeks total individual change from a social movement. If we follow through on our alcohol kind of metaphor, our addiction metaphor, which is really important if we're looking at social problems. A redemptive movement would be like Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, something where you would you completely change an individual's behavior, right? Alterative, Mothers Against Drunk Driving doesn't care if you drink, they just don't want you to drive. Whereas an Alcoholics Anonymous is a social movement, and all 12-step programs where they're seeking to fundamentally, eliminate that kind of behavior and restructure a person. Okay, so these two, alterative and redemptive, are sort of, they are individual social movements. A reformative and revolutionary social movements, the other two types, are basically these are social movements that seek social change or societal change. An example of a reformative movement, reformative movements seek to make social change. They want to maintain the existing framework, but expand or extend rights to groups that would otherwise not have them. Okay, what's a reformative social movement? Well, the civil rights movement in the 1960s, okay, was a reformative social movement. Okay, the LGBTQ marriage movement, or even any other kind of similarly related LGBTQ issues, would be similar. Okay, non-discriminatory laws at the federal level about work, for example. A revolutionary movement seeks to completely eliminate and restructure society. If we look at the what they're planning to do, and this is not just Donald Trump alone, but there's a concerted social movement there to kind of, they want to pretty much eliminate a lot of the things that society, American society, is based on and redo them. For example, they want to eliminate some fundamental aspects of the government, the separation of church and state, the division of power between the three branches of the government, They want to eliminate those, and they have a plan called Plan 2025. That they intend to implement. When and if Trump is elected president, for a second term, right? Okay, so that's the kind of goals of that, and that's a fundamental tearing down and restructuring of American society. If any social movement survives, and notice that I've included movements that have no political agenda, and I've also included movements that we have to keep in mind from the right or from the left, progressive movements versus conservative movements, or even movements that that are advocating for kind of a more autocratic. If social movements survive, they're going to move through emergence, coalescence, and routinization. Okay. Basically, Max Weber wrote about the routinization of charisma. A social movement has to become routine. Okay. It has to emerge. Religious movements, for example, or social movements. If we look at the Christian church, the early Christian church emerges. It coalesces around kind of a charismatic figure, that would be Jesus. And then, at least in the West, and there's a schism later on, but in the West, it becomes routinized through the kind of bureaucratic structures of the Roman Empire, right? So, that's kind of an intro to what we're talking about in terms of social movements. Okay. Why do social movements occur? Well, there are different frameworks. Some people hold that theorists hold that economics is a basis, that people are deprived, or the perception is that they're deprived of resources. Resource mobilization, structural strain. Remember when we talked about deviance, one of the things is social change, rejecting conventional means and ends, right? Theorists examining social movements look at power struggles in society, relating issues of economic deprivation and perceived contradiction resulting from changes in the forces of production, kind of a Marxist take on social class. Economic deprivation is an impetus for social movement when workers and capitalists find themselves at an impasse. Okay? They kind of have to reach a tipping point. Please read through this. Real revolutions, violent revolutions, a reconfiguration of the government like the American Revolution, was a perceived inequality in resources. Again, we look at the civil rights movement as an example of a social movement that was very successful. What did they do? They mobilized resources. Okay. They were able to mobilize resources, and they based it in what was at that time was the major extant institutional framework for African Americans, and that was the African American church. The civil rights movement was based in the African American church. So what's a social movement? It's all organizations, the organization working toward a particular cause. PETA, the Humane Society, but they take considerably different approaches to achieving their goals. PETA is kind of radical, okay? A social movement organization is one of several specific organizations that are part of a social movement. The NAACP, would be part of a social movement organization, and Black Lives Matter, for example. An actor is a person that participates in a social movement. So social movements have goals, scope, resources, methods, orientation, and target. Right? A goal can be proactive or reactive. A proactive social movement organization is trying to create change. A movement can be reactive when it's trying to stop or slow down change. Okay? Now, some would argue, for example, a proactive social movement. And you can, the way you frame this is important. I mean, Roe versus Wade, a very consequential decision that was overturned by the Supreme Court. I think they were, you could cast them as trying to preserve the right for a woman to choose. Whereas, the right to life movement, is trying to usurp or destroy that, right? So goals can be reformative or revolutionary, okay? And then they have subnational, national, transnational movements. Resources are important. They have to do with people, and money. For example, there's kind of a centrist Republican movement, that's bankrolled by, and I just heard this on the news. They're bankrolling an alternative to Donald Trump, and that would be a social movement. I mean, lobbying groups and big political donors would be social movements. Okay, so they depend on money and people. So within the group, okay, the group is advocating within the group indigenous resources. Okay, so basically, the American Civil Rights Movement, the indigenous resource was the African American Church. Was the only kind of strong institutional arrangement, or one of a few, where from within you had African American physicians, lawyers, kind of the whatever landed elites existed within the African American population at the time, and that would be they drew on their expertise in order to facilitate change. And exogenous resources is something external to that. Okay. And the most successful movements have a combination of both indigenous and exogenous resources. So, the next section, I'm not going to go through this in detail. Please read this section on the methods employed by social movement organizations. Okay. So a target refers to the sphere of society the social movement organization wants to change. Values, behaviors, laws, and power distribution. So, again, let's use Mothers Against Drunk Driving as a really successful example. The values, they want to reduce or eliminate drunk driving. They want to change that behavior. They want to impose laws that are going to enforce that change in the behavior. And they want to give more power to law enforcement community and to insurance companies, to kind of make sure to drive this point home, right? And they've successfully changed it and reduced the level of drunk driving in this country. So I'd like to, we can watch these videos. We won't watch them here, right? You can watch them on your own. I recommend you watch both of these videos. They explain a great deal. Okay, so basically for your assignment, right? You want to look at you want to pick a social movement, okay, and analyze that movement based on the 6 characteristics as it was just covered. Goal, scope, resources, methods, orientation, right? Okay, and again, here are okay. So we've already got some folks, who posted. This is great. And I'll be responding to those. Okay. That is basically what we're looking at when we're talking about a social movement analysis. All right. Okay, let's go back home. Content. Let's go back to the home page. I will be, grading. I'm behind in grading as people submit their work. For those of you who submitted your work, routinely, sorry for the delay. I've been waiting for other folks to submit their work. I tend to grade things in batch. So, this has been about 22 minutes of your time. I thank you. And we will hopefully see you Friday after I get my car issue resolved. Take care.